gospel is probably the most social justice-y of all of the gospels. When you read Luke and Acts, which follows, though not in the Bible, but chronologically they are connected, you can't help but think that it seems political. And that's because it is. There is a lot in Luke's gospel that speaks to power relationships. And there is a lot that speaks to how we are to live in community with one another. This is my way of saying blame Jesus, don't blame me. Jesus says and does and tells us to do things that we may not like. He instructs us to live in ways that are hard and to live with one another in ways that are not comfortable, and to value that which many times society does not, and to walk away from ways that many times society lifts up. It's really inconvenient the way that Luke's gospel presents us with this Jesus who takes everything that we think we know and turns it upside down. Well, the passage today comes on the heels of Jesus spending time in the mountain praying. And as a result of that prayer, he calls and appoints his apostles. These are different than just disciples who are learners and followers. These are the ones who will be sent out to act on what it is that they have learned. That's what the word apostle means, to be sent out. Similar to what the word saint means, to be set apart. To say and act differently than the rest of the world because of one's beliefs, because of who God has called one to be. And so Jesus comes down the mountain, and there is a crowd waiting for him. This group of people who are needy. They have diseases, they have unclean spirits, they live on the fringe of society. And they clamor at Jesus, hoping that if they can touch him, maybe some of the power that seems to exude from him will heal them. And instead of Jesus brushing them off and trying to instate a space bubble, he stays there with them. And he tells those who are there, he teaches them about what the kingdom of God is like. And this is where Jesus changes it up a bit and gets a little political. You see, in that place, at that time, people believed that if you were poor, if you were hungry, if you were an outsider, it was because you deserved it. It was your fault. You had made poor choices. You had sinned and missed the mark. And so God was punishing you. Or maybe it was your parents who had sinned by what they had done or left undone, and you were just paying their price. But if you were wealthy, Well, if you had a full belly, if you had power and status, clearly it was because you were obedient and you had pleased God and you were being rewarded. Frankly, I'm not so sure that these ways of thinking are just those of the ancient past. In fact, I know they're not. I hear people complaining all the time about those who need a little extra help or assistance. They judge them as being lazy or working the system. I think that's natural. We all want to place blame. And it's a lot easier to point our fingers at those in poverty than to consider where we might have a part in this system. And the truth, as uncomfortable as it may be, according to the statistics from the U.S. Bureau of Labor, is that those who receive any sort of public assistance spend far less than those who do not on essentially everything. They spend about half on housing and a third less on food and 2/3 less on entertainment and a fraction on health care. And I know we all know someone who knows someone who knows someone who is abusing the system. But if you do the research, there's only about 2.5% where there is actual fraud. But on the other hand, if someone is born into a wealthy family and they have their choice of what sort of Ivy League college they want to go to without any student loans, and then they get hired into daddy's firm right away, somehow society tells us that we're supposed to admire that person and look up to them based on no merit of their own. But Jesus came down the mountain, and he's telling those who will listen that those who are wanting, those who are poor, not just poor in spirit, that's Matthew's gospel, but Luke cuts straight to it. Those who are poor, those who are hungry, those who are on the edges, on the fringe of society, who other people step away from, or they're nervous around them. Jesus tells them that he has come for them. That he will fill their empty places. That he will lift their burdens. And he will bring joy to those who are grieving. Jesus tells those who the rest of the world wants to turn their noses up to or turn their backs on, that the kingdom of God belongs to them, and that they are not being punished for anything they have done or left undone. And then Jesus warns those in the top tax brackets, those who have had a lot of monetary success in their lives, those who appear to have everything they want and don't need anyone or anything, let alone God. Those who think that it's because they are smart and good that they have so much. And those who figure they have worked hard for what they have, and why should they be the ones to sacrifice for other ones who they aren't so sure deserve it at all? And Jesus warns them. That's it. Woe to you. You can't take it with you. Your monetary success is not evidence that God is pleased with you. And money can't buy you love. And that's what the kingdom of God is about. It's about love. God loving us loving our enemies even. That's hard. Martin Luther tells us that we are simultaneously sinners and saints. Jesus has chosen us in our baptism and called us as saints, and as such, we are holy, just as those who have gone before us and have taught us about God's love are holy. In this social justice-y political gospel, we hear Jesus telling us that the kingdom of God is not just in some faraway place, but it is here in our midst. And we have been blessed to bless and love and pray for even those we don't like. Even those we might imagine are lazy or pretentious. And we are to give to everyone who asks, regardless of if we think they deserve it or not. And we are to welcome the stranger from nearby or far away, from across the street, across the border, across the world, because we are strangers who have missed the mark and fallen short. And still Jesus has welcomed us and loved us. And as inconvenient as it is, we have been set apart and sent out as saints to follow Jesus, not the world. And we have been blessed to receive what we don't deserve, the presence of God in the kingdom of God.